Check 1 2 3. Check 1 2 3. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Kevin Zwicker from Fast Count, and this is your WWE Clash in Paris post show. Anytime we go into these international shows, it kind of feels as if the crowd is the star. It doesn't matter what the card looks like, whether you're main eventing the show with a world title match or you're main eventing the show with the ladies. It feels as if the crowd is the main talking point coming into the show and coming out of the show. And that was no different than what went down tonight. These people in Paris were rabid. If you guys remember last year, Backlash took place in France as well, but wasn't in the city of Paris. So you know that these group of people were, anxious to see this, card that we had laid out in front of us. We had Jelly Roll and Post Malone be front and center in the crowd right behind Michael Cole and Wade Barrett. They have a show coming up next week. Jelly Roll, not too big into his music. Post Malone, I enjoy White Iverson, but for the most part, his music is pretty bleh to me as well. But it is what it is. Before we get into these shows, guys, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe. Hitting the like button helps the channel out in more ways than you even know. And always remember that it's free. This match was mainly focused on the four-way for the world title and the John Cena versus Logan Paul match. We all know John Cena is now in the single digits of appearances that he has left during this farewell tour. He had his match against Logan Paul, which is a big time kind of mainstream media type match that could really attract people who normally don't watch the show. They did a video package right before the show hyping up the new deal that they have with ESPN. I thought what was funny is if you watch that hype package, it's pretty much a minute long, and 40 seconds of that hype package was celebrities. It's just kind of funny how the industry has really changed when it's like it was such a special occasion when we saw these celebrities involved, and now it's just like, who knows, on a regular Monday Night Raw, we could catch freaking the main person from, the biggest show on Netflix. But guys, we're going to start this show off by talking about the Roman Reigns versus Bronson Reed match. I think 99% of the population expected Roman Reigns to come out of this match with a win, and that's what we got. But going into it, it's become apparently clearer and clearer that Roman Reigns is going to be gone. Fucking moth. Roman Reigns is going to be gone for pretty much the whole month of September. He's going to be off to film, his role as Akuma and Street Fighter. So for me, I thought, it's probably not going to happen, us seeing Bronson Reed win. But if you really want to sit there and go, really all the way with this guy, and this is somebody who you think you have a big time future in, I would say you have him beat Roman, right? It didn't have to be clean. It could have been a schmoz fest, but I think if you really want to go all the way with the guy, have him beat Roman. And WWE especially are very, very protective of their top guys. Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, they are the upper echelon of the upper echelon when it comes to the main event scene. But I don't think that it hurts these guys really one iota if on very rare occasions, especially somebody who you're trying to build up as a big deal, take a loss. Him hitting him hitting Roman Reigns with a tsunami, a move that they have, talked about multiple different times as a move that nobody has kicked out of, I think would have really cemented the guy. But what they did wasn't awful. They had Roman Reigns pick up the W, and they had him have a beatdown by the hands of Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, a stretcher job. We saw Bronson Reed hit a tsunami on Roman Reigns. We saw Braun Breaker hit multiple spears on Roman Reigns. After Roman Reigns picked up the W, not only did he get his shoes back from Paul Heyman, he also put him in a guillotine as well. It looked as if he was celebrating with the crowd. He got his shoes back. He was signing them. He was throwing them. And then Bronson Reed hit him with a vicious spear, the best spear in the business. Throughout this whole match, it didn't look as if Bronson Reed was out of place. A lot of times, it kind of looks as if, guys who are in these opportunities with these top guys like Roman Reigns or Cody Rhodes, they could look as if, they don't belong, right? Like they're not even in the same class. But you didn't really get that feeling throughout this match. It felt as if they were on the similar tiers, right? Bronson Reed, he was able to save face, but being a part of that beatdown, him and Braun Breaker, that beatdown would cost Seth Rollins later on in the show. After this beatdown they laid upon Roman Reigns, they were backstage. Adam Pearce was furious. He told the guys, he said, I'm furious. Now we have Roman Reigns in the hospital. And he banned both of them and kicked them out of the arena. And he said, if I see you guys again, I am going to suspend you without pay, right? Nobody likes to work and not get paid, or be on the sidelines and not get paid. So that was something that was going into the main event. That was one of the big talking points. The second match on the card was the Street Profits versus the Wyatts for the tag team title. This is the second PLE in the row where we see the tag titles defended, as you guys can kind of remember. And, that was a big talking point that a lot of people would talk about going into these shows, that we have all these different PLE cards and we have no tag title matches on the card. We have no Carmelo Hayes on the card, which we still didn't have Carmelo Hayes on the card, but at least we're making some sort of progress. And they're teasing this little, friction between the Street Profits. In the beginning of this match, you had both of them kind of tag each other out. And we saw Joe Gacy and Dexter Lumis, two guys who are on the same page right now, get the better at times of, Montez and Dawkins. It looked as if Montez and Dawkins, throughout this whole match, they were just trying to keep with each other and get on the same page. But with the Wyatts being this synchronized group at the moment where they're just tied at the hip, it feels as if they all know each other's move front to back. The Street Profits were gaining momentum at times, but they got stopped by Nikki Cross, where she was under the ring, and she grabbed Tez's foot. Dexter Lumis is in the ring, and Joe Gacy is also in the ring, and they are distracting the referee. And we see Bo Dallas hit a Sister Abigail on Tez. Dawkins, he is in the ring, and they hit their tag team maneuver that they do. They are now calling it the Plague. That's their finisher. That's a new name, which is a pretty cool name, right? They pick up the win. They retain the tag team championships. I think that the Wyatt thing, it has its fans. It's one of those things where, supernatural gimmicks, you're either for it or you're against it. There's not really a lot of people who are in between. I think when done right, that they can be very effective. I think that this Wyatt thing, when they first started and they had the vignettes, I thought that there was a lot of promise. But something that I've noticed under the Triple H regime when it comes to the way that he books the show is we get this big moment, like this big debut, this big, crazy angle, and there's not a lot of good follow through with it. With them being on two PLEs back-to-back, picking up big wins, momentum's on their side. But hey, I'd like to see more development from these guys and really sit there and do something to where, not only do we have these creepy vignettes that we're getting in the beginning, but something fresh and new added to the show. Next, we're going to get into the Becky Lynch versus Nikki Bella match. And coming out of this match, everybody's going to be talking about that botch. If you saw the match, Nikki Bella, she had this top rope maneuver that she was doing, and she just completely missed Becky Lynch from like a mile. And I don't want to be so hard on Nikki. We all know that Nikki is not somebody who's in the ring on a regular basis. This is kind of a farewell run for her as well. And she was never that great in the ring to begin with. So I feel like we should cut her some slack. I know people aren't going to do it. One thing that I've always found kind of funny is when she initially came back and we saw those backstage segments where we see people like Io Sky tell her things like, thank you for paving the way for us. I feel as if they are kind of using Nikki Bella as like a surrogate for AJ Lee because they can't get AJ Lee. Because if you really look at the ladies that we have today and their in-ring styles and the fact that they're more known for their in-ring ability than they are for their looks, I feel like that was really ushered in by AJ. Wasn't ushered in by Nikki Bella. If you guys remember one of AJ Lee's her own personal pipe bomb was basically going at the Bellas and, shitting on them for the Total Diva stuff. So for me, when they do that, I feel as if they would have wanted AJ Lee for that spot, but they can't get AJ Lee for that spot. So they use somebody from that era that has a name, and it's Nikki Bella. Now, outside of that botch, that was probably the best singles match of Nikki Bella's career. Now, that's not saying much because if you look through her whole, matchography, you're not going to see a bunch of 5-star bangers. I think the fact that she was in the ring with Becky Lynch, who is one of the better in-ring professional wrestlers when it comes to the women's side and over the last decade, I feel like that really helps. But it wasn't an embarrassing showing for Nikki. I think that if Nikki is in the ring on a more consistent basis, and I think that we're going to see that. I don't know how long this run she's going to have is going to last, but I think ring rust played a big factor in what we saw. Nikki Bella, she put an armbar on Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch was able to pick up the win by a backslide, and she was able to, pick up the W and retain her Intercontinental Championship for the women's side. Now, I failed to mention earlier that when Roman Reigns was getting this beat down, from the Vision, that Jey Uso came in and he attempted to help. These two guys that, the two guys were able to get the better of Jey Uso due to the numbers game. Bronson Reed, Braun Breaker, and Jey Uso, he got his ribs, attacked again. We get a backstage segment where Jey Uso is kind of grimacing in pain, and he is approached by Adam Pearce. Adam Pearce asks him, he's like, "Are you good, Uso?" And Jey tells him, "Yeah." And he says, he's like, "Because that's not what the medical team is telling me." And Jey tells him, "I don't give a damn about what the medical team is telling you. My cousin Roman told me before he was stretchered off to go win that championship," right? So Jey locked and loaded, ready to go for that match. And he is ready to get that world title back and bring it back to the Anoa'i family and the Fatu family. I think he's a Fatu. He's not an Anoa'i. That's Roman. But same shit, right? Guys, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe. It helps the channel out in more ways than you even know. And always remember that it's free. Next, we'll get into the match that I consider to be the match of the night. And that is Rusev versus Sheamus in this good old-fashioned Donnybrook match. They had all these different, barrels, whiskey barrels lined up around the ring. They had a bar. Instead of having beer on it, they had bottles of Prime. I can imagine anybody going into a bar and not seeing any beer but seeing Prime would be extremely disappointed. But this was just a big old-fashioned meat-on-meat match. Two big old guys, crashing into things, hitting each other and making it look very stiff. There was a lot of shillelaghs involved. There was a spot where they were on top of the barrels and they ended up going through a table. I thought that was badass. I thought that everything that was involved in the crowd was really into it. I think that when WWE was able to capture all these different free agents from AEW in a short period of time, Aleister Black, Rusev, Ricky Saints, who else was the one who Blake Monroe, Mariah May. It really felt as if this was a coup for WWE, because if we look through the last couple of years, there's been periods and times where AEW brought in a lot of ex-WWE talent, and it felt as if this was WWE's opportunity to do that as well. But at the time, especially with Rusev, it felt as if they were just bringing them back for the sake of bringing them back, because they haven't really done a lot with those individuals since they brought them in outside of Ricky Saints. And this was one of those occasions where it felt as if everybody cared about Sheamus, but Rusev was kind of just in there, and people would boo him because of the things that he was doing to Sheamus, not necessarily because they cared so much about him. But he was able to do something that only one other man was able to do, and that was Bobby Lashley in, I believe, 2021, and that was to make Sheamus tap out. Now, Sheamus and Rusev, two guys who are friends in real life. I think that this was Sheamus's way of really trying to look out for his friend and put him over as strongly as he possibly can. Because Sheamus, he's not necessarily in the same category as Roman Reigns or Cody Rhodes, where they're just untouchable. But Sheamus is a guy who's been around for long enough to where I think when it comes to his connection with the crowd, he's been able to build enough equity with them to where he's going to get a positive reaction no matter what, just because of what he's been able to do. And I think that this win for Rusev was much needed. And I am very hopeful that Triple H and the rest of the team is going to be able to capitalize on having Rusev pick up a big time win on a big time stage against Sheamus, because you don't want it to be where Sheamus tapped out, did something that he's only done another time, and then it goes to waste. And I'm hoping that WWE is going to be able to capitalize on that. Next, we get into John Cena versus Logan Paul. Two big-time guys in the space of Hollywood. John Cena, Peacemaker. If you guys haven't checked out Peacemaker Season 2, it's on Episode 2. Very good so far. Logan Paul, one of the biggest podcasts in the world. And, of course, he is a guy who is synonymous with being an influencer or, a Prime drink. You see, kids drinking Prime on a consistent basis. So from a non-hardcore wrestling perspective, I think this was a smorgasbord of offering that you can give to the most casual of casuals. John Cena comes out. He gets a monster reaction. I'm sure that most of you guys expected that to occur. If you guys have seen, what happened on SmackDown yesterday, the guy got a monster reaction there as well. So this is not shocking at all. Logan Paul, and I know I'm going to sound kind of crazy, and I think this may come across a little bit too harsh, but it's not meant to be that way. People, they watch Logan Paul, and they go on and they talk about how great of a wrestler he is and all these different things. And for me, if you just took the name Logan Paul, right, and you just called him Jonathan Smith, and you took him out of WWE and you put him in AEW, most WWE fans would crap on him because he wrestles a lot like the guys in AEW do, right? And a lot of those guys get called like spot monkeys, and they have no wrestling psychology. And it's like when I watch Logan Paul, I see the exact same thing. But a guy who isn't a trained professional wrestler, for the most part, a guy who didn't go about this traditional way. I think that if we're just talking about his ability to have all these cool maneuvers, I think that's something that should be saluted. I think that on the other hand, though, when you see guys like Logan Paul or Jelly Roll or all these different celebrities have these matches, for me, wrestling, it always kind of, growing up for me, it always felt like this was one of those things where like it takes somebody who's extremely skilled, or it takes a lot of dedication to do it. And then when you see these guys go out and able to do it and have these full-on matches, it kind of takes away from that and kind of makes it feel as if anybody can do it. But hey, John Cena, he laid multiple different AAs on Logan Paul. Logan Paul was able to kick out of majority of them. I think John Cena hit about like 5 AAs on Logan Paul before Logan Paul was able to be, took away from this match. Cena, throughout this whole match, the crowd was just, showering him in applause. They were, showing their appreciation for a guy who has been the top guy for 15 plus years, which is so hard to do in the world of professional wrestling. And it's something that I think that we need to appreciate more than we do. And Cena was able to pick up the W. I think people were kind of worried about the fact that, we only have these limited amount of dates left with John Cena. And I think people were kind of worried that, is he just going to put people over for the last couple of days, last couple of appearances he has? And I think this was the right call for him to beat Logan Paul. Logan Paul was hit with 2 AAs at the end after he landed a right on John Cena, and he went for another one, and John Cena hit one more final AA, 1, 2, 3, pick up the win. I think that if these last couple of appearances were used to put people over, then the last person who's able to get the rub, whether it's somebody like Dominic Mysterio or Gunther, I feel like it would be less effective, and it would basically make it a non-rub for the most part, right? Next, we get into the main event, the 4-way for the world title. Before we get to the match, Seth Rollins was backstage. He was approached by Jackie Redmond. She told him, she said, look, you're heading into this match. You have no Paul Heyman, no Braun Breaker, no Bronson Reed. You are heading into this match alone. And Seth Rollins tells her, I am always 2 steps ahead. I always have something going on. I always have something up my sleeve. And to be honest with you, if I'm not able to do this alone, then I might not really be, the guy who should be holding this world title. So we go into this match. I think most people were expecting that the 3 baby faces were going to pretty much have their way with Seth Rollins for the most part. And there was parts of the match where that was going on, but there was other parts in the match where we had this brewing tension between the 3 guys, right? Last week on Raw, Jey Uso, he kicked CM Punk. CM Punk got his revenge and kicked Jey Uso back. We saw LA Knight get put through a table from CM Punk, whether it was inadvertently or not. We saw LA Knight get his revenge and put CM Punk through a table. Didn't really go through it, kind of dented it, but you got the point. You knew that's what they were trying to go for. LA Knight's the only guy in this match who never won the world title. That's something throughout the match that they were mentioning. LA Knight was trying to elbow Seth Rollins through the announce table. Seth Rollins moved, and LA Knight went through it. At the end of the match, we got it to where, it was basically CM Punk and Seth Rollins alone, right? Seth Rollins, he is telling CM Punk, he's like, I want you out of here. I want this to be your last match in the WWE. I hate you. I hate your stupid family. He goes to get a chair, and when he goes to get his chair, he sits there and he stomps Jey Uso one last time. He stomps LA Knight one last time. He puts CM Punk's head right through the opening of the chair. He plans on hitting CM Punk with the stomp on the chair. CM Punk moves. He hits a GTS on Seth Rollins. We see a spot similar to the main event in the Raw Netflix mirror, where CM Punk has Seth Rollins bounce off the ropes, and Seth Rollins lands on CM Punk's shoulders again. It looks as if CM Punk is going to capture the world title, but he is low blowed by a mystery assailant. We get revealed that mystery assailant is none other than Mrs. Rollins, Becky Lynch. And we see Seth Rollins hit the stomp. 1, 2, 3. Him and his lovely wife celebrate a night where they both retain their championships. Now, I don't know if this is an indication that she's going to be a member of the Vision, or they're going to pair them up on screen again like they did previously before, but this time be at the role of heels and not baby faces like before. But if this is what we're going to go with, I don't hate it. Seth Rollins paired up with his wife, Becky Lynch. I feel like she is doing wonders in the women's division. Seth Rollins, he is the guy that the show revolves around now. I've stated it multiple different times before. If you've never heard it before, I'm going to tell you my honest opinion. I feel like the most boring periods of Raw history is when the show has revolved around Seth Rollins. And I think for the last several weeks where we have seen this same ending, where it's a Vision brawl with somebody, I need something to spice this thing up. I need something to jazz it up. And if you're going to add Becky Lynch into this, I am all for it because I like the work that she is doing. Now, I think that this is going to speculate a lot of people online. You're going to say, hey, Seth Rollins, he had his wife involved. CM Punk also has a wife who is a former wrestler as well. Maybe this is the time. Maybe this is the moment where we get the return of AJ Lee. I think it's very kind of far-fetched. I believe that if we were going to see an AJ Lee return, we probably would have already gotten it. But in the world of professional wrestling, you never really know. There's been times where I've thought, hey, this person's never going to come back. And hey, we saw Bret Hart come back to the WWE, Goldberg, CM Punk, all these guys who said, nope, 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 nope. And eventually, enough zeros is thrown their way to where they make their return. So I know people are going to speculate on it, but I don't know. But who knows, right? It's there to see. It's a possibility. I think it's a better than a 0 chance that she makes her return now. But I think this is going to be all just speculation for now. I feel kind of bad for somebody like Stephanie McCure, because to have her off the card and have Nikki Bella on the card is a bit of a head scratching move, but it is what it is. I think the show was solid for the most part. It was good for what it was. Dave Meltzer star rating 3. We're going to have Raw in Paris tomorrow. I don't think I'm going to be able to do my Raw post show because it is at 2 and I will be very occupied around that time. But we will see. Who knows? Let's see what is going on. But guys, this was your Clash in Paris post show. On a regular time slots, we do Monday Night Raw post shows, and every Wednesday we do AEW post shows as well. But guys, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe. I am Kevin Zwicker. I'm out.